All right, hello everyone. My name's Matt Race and I'm from Race Dental. Welcome to the Race Academy Live webinar series, episode 5, Shade Matching for Optimum Aesthetic Results. As usual, as we wait for the last of our people to jump on board, we see we've got big numbers today. I'd like to welcome everyone. We have people, dentists, others, technicians from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Malaysia, the United States and Singapore. So welcome everyone, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to come along and see what us technicians need to give our patients optimum results. Again, if anyone has any questions as we go, please make note of those. We have people vetting those and we can jump on those at the end of the webinar. So again, thank you very much, and let's get started with Race Dental's webinar series, Shade Matching for Optimum Results. Today I'm coming home, before I do start, I'm coming live from home today, playing our role in the COVID-19, staying safe to keep our staff, our clients, and most importantly, our customers and patients safe. So here you'll see a beautiful representation of some artwork from home. So I hope you enjoy that while we go through Shade taking optimum results. So here you can see a pretty tough case. We're missing a 1-1, and we have some difficult shade pieces down in the incisal edges, some translucency, some mamelons, some internal characteristics and effects. And how do we get a good result with restorative manufacture in these difficult circumstances? How do we manage to get results like these? And a lot of our clinicians like to send the patients down, but it's just unnecessary. You can see another difficult case here, lots of translucency, lots of internal characteristics, mamelons, halos, etc. So we're going to learn today what we need as technicians to ensure we get these shade matches correct, and hopefully correct first time. Time is money. Getting it right in one go is paramount to the success and longevity of a successful business and clinic. So today we're going to see how we do that and what we need as technicians to get these sorts of results. So moving along now, we can see there's a plethora of different shade taking technologies that have come out over the years. Some have been beneficial, some have been not so useful. Up in the right hand side we can see Vita's shade taking system that just registers what the shade is. Some other ones across here. Down the bottom left hand corner was the Shade Vision system from X-Rite. It was the first system on the market which enabled us technicians to do virtual try-ins. So it was quite powerful, but about 15 or 16 years ago we were using that technology, and it was great whilst we were still learning. Shade polars on the right hand side came out, made it a little bit easier to read shades. And on the top left here, the elaborate prime system. Again, it's a newer version of doing virtual try-ins, and it gives inexperienced technicians a good starting point. But there's nothing better than digital photography. The Trios system is probably one of the best scanners on the market. It is capable of taking shades. If it does say that the tooth, and you can see it's registering the cervical third of the 2 here as an A1, it does register that, and it does do a good job of recognizing the shade. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us internal characteristics or mamelons or halos or any of the further details that a digital photograph can give us. So yes, the Trios takes a good shade, but it doesn't give us enough information for those anterior cases. So you can see here it's quite comprehensive in its capability, but a little bit shy. It's just an artist's impersonation of what that incisal translucency and characteristics looks like. So I've got some questions coming through there. I'll ask the girls and our support team to look after those, and we'll address those at the end. So the first thing you need for digital photography is a camera. And which camera, and I get asked a lot of the time, which camera should they buy or should our clinicians buy? This is an SLR, and a lot of people use SLRs. It's probably unnecessary, but this is the one that I use. It's a Nikon D7000. I'd also put it on board with a macro lens and flash system, and I really like these flash point brackets, which enable the flash to be hit the tooth at a 45-degree angle. That is beneficial, and you can get some pretty good close-up or macro shots like this that clearly demonstrate the translucency, the halo, all these characteristic mamelon effects, any cracks or little bits of perichromata at the top, and I think it gets a good job. Unfortunately, with the DSLRs, it really takes a long learning curve to be able to use them. So this is the same tooth taken 3 times, same photo taken of the same tooth 3 times, and you can clearly see how different each of those can look if you don't know how to use the DSLR properly. You don't understand the settings. So if you don't know your settings, contact us and we can start helping you. But I've put this together as a starting point for most DSLR users. An ISO for a full face shot. If you want to start around 400, I think that's a good starting point. An ISO for an intraoral shot around 200. The f-stop around 13 works for a full face for the Nikon. I believe the Canon is a little bit different. And around 22 for an intraoral photo. The focus I like to use full face, I think auto, but internally I like to run a manual setup. The flash 1:1, speed 125, flash control manual, and the image quality JPEG. And this is really important. Please set your cameras to JPEG so when you send the photo, we can read it straight away. A lot of the cameras are set to RAW. When you send those photos, we need to export and import them into some other software to be able to read those. So please set your cameras to JPEG outside of a RAW and do us all a favour. It will make your life and our life a lot easier in not having to post-process your photos. The second choice, which most people use, is the simple smartphone. I have a iPhone 8, and I think it does as good a job as some of these bigger cameras these days. It's all autonomous. You don't need to understand settings and how to run your DSLR. So a smartphone is good. You may wish to couple that with something along the lines of a smile light. And I really like this smile light system. It gives us a really nice result. This is a simple system where you can strap your phone on the back, and it has 2 45-degree lights and also one in the middle. It does come with some diffusers, which makes the photography look a little bit nicer, and you don't get the light reflection off the tooth that some of those direct ring light flashes can give. And also down here you'll see it comes with a little diffuser or a polarized piece as well. We'll talk about what that can do a little later. Pretty simple to use. You snap this on the back of you snap any smartphone on the back here, and it becomes an excellent lighting source for any smartphone. And these are the sorts of photographs that you can take with a smartphone with a nice smile light or a light system that straps on. And you can see it's a pretty user-friendly photograph. We've got all the information we need from translucency and halo, characteristics, labial characterization, internal effects, and I think it suffices for most clinicians in their communication with us technicians to get a nicer result. These are all smartphone photos taken with that smile light. If anyone's interested in that smile light, please make contact with our customer support team, who will direct you in the best way to take on one of these smile lights. So not only anterior aesthetics, you can get some nice posterior photos. You can see all of these taken with a simple smartphone. When I first bought the smile light, I put my iPhone 8 on it and I took this photograph, day one. You can see the incisal edge of the shade guide up against the natural tooth, and I can really see everything I need to know to be able to manufacture that restoration in the hope of getting it right the first time. Some more questions coming through there. I ask those to please wait till the end, and we'll get to those at the end of this presentation. So it does have a polarized filter, and a lot of technicians believe that polarized filters or lenses can help. Personally, I don't use them, but you can see what this photo looks like in a polarized state. It does, I guess, highlight the calcification and some of those internal characteristics and some of those internal cracks. I don't use them, but a lot of people think that helps. But you may want to consider a polarized filter should you wish to try and help in communicating. There are lots of different filters we can use, and this is a reverse one that just highlights to me the value of our ingot selection. And I can clearly see this needs to be a high translucent ingot. You'll see the high translucent shade tab here up against the restoration when I'm finished, just to see how true it is. So I like this filter when I'm choosing when I'm making my ingot selection for predominantly Emacs and Emacs CAD restorations. Here's another filter, which is a simple contrast setting. This really highlights the labial characterization, these cracks here, internal characteristics, the halos, and the translucency. It really dominates the information needed for incisal build-up, so our technicians really like that. Alternatively, we can run to black and white, which helps with the value, and this also gives us a lot of information. It's unnecessary for you to take a black and white photo. The technicians in the lab will turn it to black and white just to try and highlight those characteristics, predominantly around the mamelons in the incisal edge. Here's another photograph courtesy of Dr. Malcolm Cook, and he takes these photos and he eliminates the gingiva like this, and it just enables us to focus more predominantly on the shade of the teeth and the shade of the teeth only. So you'll see in approximately if I just go back here, this cervical third of the 1 and 3, you can see it's more saturated in chroma, but when we highlight the tooth by graying out the gingiva, tells us a little bit more information about how much chroma or how much saturation in that cervical third. So it's another powerful tool, and one you may wish to look at. It's another useful way of seeing what we need to do in restorative manufacture. Another technique is what they call the grayscale, and this is how it all started with the eLab Prime. A really good tool, and I think it's quite useful for the budding ceramists who are still learning how to build successfully. It does give us a lot more information, I guess. I think a good digital photograph in the hands of a premium ceramist is good enough. I think these systems are probably unnecessary, but I thought I'd show you that if you've got a ceramist who is still learning, maybe graying out the scale or finding an eLab Prime might help. So then I get asked by a lot of clinicians which shade guide they should be using. And here's a number of shade guides that are on the market. And it's kind of difficult to know which one to use or when to use what. This is a shade. This one here is a stump shade photograph. For photographing stump shades, I think it's fine just to use a normal shade guide. 3D Master is pretty popular, and this is the one that most people use. And I'm going to tell you my opinion on which shade guide to use. And my opinion on which shade guide to use is to ask your dental laboratory what materials they use to manufacture crowns. And most world-leading manufacturers like these all use the Vita Classic shade guide from A1 to D4 shade guide, because the materials they use to manufacture their restorations come in these shades. So I think the best shade guide to use is the one that your dental laboratory has the right tools or the materials to make. Most world manufacturers are using the Vita Classic shade guide, and therefore I recommend utilising the Vita Classic shade guide. So if we take a look at that, here's the A1 to D4 Vita Classical shade guide, which I recommend. But what I like to do is consider changing from A1 in the order arrangement that it comes in, into rearranging the tabs into a value base. So you can see here the value, the brightest value down to the darkest value. And this order here is going to help you focus on the value as opposed to the shade or the hue or the chroma. It's a similar sort of concept that the Vita Master shade guide took on, but I think the Vita Classical shade guide rearranged in this order will help most clinicians focus on the value, which is most important, and then deliver the correct shade choice for the restorative manufacture. Conventionally structured on hue and chroma, restructured on value. I've just reproduced that in black and white here, so you can actually see how the chroma, see how the value changes from bright to dark. And I think it's a real powerful way of turning the Vita Classical shade guide into a more useful tool for communication. So here's a case that came in. Restorations required on the 1-1 and the 2-1. Some beautiful photography there, and I'd just like to use this case as an example of how to take a correct shade guide photograph. You select the shade tab that looks most similar to the restoration that we're matching, and in this case it's the 1-2. And then you put the incisal edge of the shade guide up against the incisal edge of the natural tooth that we're trying to match. Remembering, if you're making a 1-3, then you need to take your photographs up against the 2-3. You can see this, the D2 shade guide is an excellent shade match for the incisal ledge here. Then the D3 shade guide is an excellent shade match for the cervical of the 1-2. The AT has a little bit of, the A2 bottom, the bottom left photograph here is a nice underlying shade. And the D2 on is an excellent match incisally with the 2-2. These photographs are perfect in giving the dental technicians what we need to get premium results. So please ensure you put the shade guide incisal edge up against the incisal edge of the natural tooth that we're trying to match. Ensure that they're both perpendicular to the camera, not on an angle like this, or especially not cervical to incisal edge. A nice incisal edge to incisal edge, get a good photograph. Grab another shade that you think could be close as well and take another photograph. And you give us these photographs and the chances of that restoration looking good first time is going to be improved. Some other photographs here that show a similar technique where we've got incisal edge against the incisal edge. Here's a different shade tab, and down the bottom for lower anterior cases, you want to take it inverted so the incisal edge is against the lower incisal edge as well. So you can see the importance of putting a shade tab in there for reference. Here's the same shade tab in the same mouth with two different camera settings. On the left, if you hadn't put the shade tab in there, we probably would have made an A2. On the right-hand side, without a shade tab, we probably would have made a C2 or a C3. So it's important to create that reference point by using the shade tab itself. We can then utilize the shade tab as simply as a reference point. So it's paramount to put the shade tabs in. Again, another example from we're making a 1-1. Some great photos here that we needed to. One moment. Okay. Yeah, some excellent photographs here with different value settings, and you can see the different settings of the camera getting different results. Here's some photos from Angelo Lazarus, who is a great photographer, and we really appreciate the detail in this photograph to give us some nice results and improve the chances of getting that restoration right first time. If you're using metal-free ceramics, it's also important to communicate the colour of the underlying dentine. I don't think you need to purchase a specific dentine shade tab. I think the traditional Vita Classic shade guide, like you can see here, and the importance of the photo is not as important, but you can see here we're going to need to mask out the discoloration more aggressively on the 1-1 than the 2-1, but it's really important that you provide these shade tab photos of the underlying shade so we can mask where necessary, or we can grab the underlying colour with the translucent ingot and help bring those warmth through in the restoration. So super important to get those results. Another example, it's not super important to get perfect photos, but for shade tabs, this is good. You can see I need to mask this out in the 1-1 region with the low translucent ingot, but I'm happy to use a high translucent ingot in different areas here, and it just gives us more room to play, and our ingot selection becomes easier. Please ensure that you take all of your shade photos before you do anything. A lot of people spend time prepping the teeth, and then they take the shade photos, and unfortunately, when syneresis takes place, a lot of teeth can lighten by 1, 2, or even 3 shades, and imbibition can take up to 3-4 hours. So you can see how much lighter the 1-2 is here after the teeth have been prepped in comparison to beforehand. So please take all your shade photos before you even get into the surgery, or train one of your team to do that for you, and get all the photos before you do anything. It's important that we get photographs before the teeth change shape or lose that water. Here's a good example. It's an old chromoscope shade that came in. We're making a 1-1. Stump shade's taken here, so I know I don't need to do a lot of discoloration marking or marking out, and the restoration's finished. This is straight away at time of cementation, so soft tissue healing hasn't taken place. But you can see here the light reflection of the 1-1 matching the light reflection of the 2-1. The first light reflection after on the central lobe matches central lobe reflection on the 2-1. So these sorts of photographs give us great ways to get these results right first time. Same with implant cases. Another example here, if I zoom in, you can see the cervical warmth of the 1-2 matching the cervical warmth of the 1-3. 0.11. The internal characteristics, this bluey mauvey colour matches these colours nicely. The halos and the white flecking can match nicely, and the interproximal colours are nearly a perfect match. All from good photographs. So please take good photographs. The better the photographs, the better the result. This patient came in, had 2 veneers done elsewhere, and I think the only issue with these 2 veneers was ingot selection. Again, didn't have enough information. Shows a low translucent ingot. We just simply replace them with a high translucent ingot and get a beautiful result. So good photographs give us the right information to make ingot selection and colour choice. For posterior work, this is a simple photograph I need. We're replacing some posterior restorations. I just ask the patient to bite down, and you can use a mirror, or if you can retract the cheek sufficiently enough, you should get a good result. And I think, again, some posterior photos like this from an excellent dentist, Dr. Yuli Yong, and I thank her for her photography. It gives us some beautiful ways to get nice results. This patient needs 2 inlays. A simple photograph like this from Dr. Yong, and the lab can perform in giving a nice high translucent inlay in those restorations. And I think you can see these finishes and these solutions all come from good photography. Thank you, Yuli. For large upper cases, you might wish to consider taking a photograph of the lower anteriors. And this gives us a lot of information on how much work or colour or effort we need to put into the incisal edge of the uppers. So we can push the boundaries of how light we can make those upper teeth, but then with more character in the incisal edge, we can help them blend in with the lower, so there's not a lot of differentiation in colour between the uppers and lowers. So for big upper anterior cases, please provide a photo like this so we can put more work into the incisal edge to help blend that. And you won't get that stark differentiation. It's a real powerful way of getting those big cases blending nicely and pushing the boundary on how much we can lighten them up. For single tooth or anterior work, the labial characterization, again, nothing works better than a digital photograph. You can see on the left-hand side the nice high shine finish here, as opposed to this patient on the right-hand side who has a satin finish. So yeah, these photographs give us everything we need to ensure we finish that restoration, to do everything we can to get it as perfect in the mouth as we can. That labial characterization, another fine example of all this detail here, and this detail is highlighted by taking photographs with those 2 45-degree lights. A direct ring flash would flash back at the camera and give a result that's not so useful. So 45-degree angles will highlight all that labial characterization. So that smile light will give you everything you need to get that result. And if you've got a lot of detail in labial characterization, like severe peristomato or some real chronic characterization, then again, consider good photography and hope that we can finish those restorations and make them look the same. If you have some gingival matching, here's a 2-unit case, courtesy of Brett Taylor, another awesome dentist. So we finished the restoration, and on the right-hand side, we just used our gingiva masking to try and get a nice gingival result here. Looks much nicer here, and Brett takes some lovely photographs, which makes my job a lot easier. So thank you, but consider using a shade tab like the gingival shade match. So put this up and take a photo and give us the information we need, and hopefully we can get that gingiva to blend in perfectly. And patients with high lip lines will be the ones that benefit the most. So if you were to use a tricky anterior case, please consider using the elite team at RACE. The elite team are the technicians that pour the love and extra effort into getting each of those labial characterizations and internal characteristics and that single central work right. And you can get these sorts of results by utilising our elite team and giving us good photographs. Again, we looked at this at the start, but using these shade matching techniques and good digital photographs, we can hope to deliver those sorts of restorations. Here's a case for Dr. Luke Cronin. We came in, it's a monolithic zirconia bridge from the 1.3 to the 1.4, and you can see all the characteristics. Luke's photography is fantastic, so you can see the mamelon effects here, the calcification and the fluorosis, the cervical warmth and the translucency matches perfectly, and that's all from good photography. So you get it right, and the lab will get it right with you. That's it for a shade taking, but before I go, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jeff Hall. Dr. Jeff Hall is a orthodontist in Melbourne, and he is a great guy. We're good mates, and he has kindly decided to help us with our webinar series. And episode 5 will be Jeff talking about early orthodontic treatment, the essential knowledge for a general dentist. So if you've got, well, Jeff says that approximately 1 in 4 children aged between 7 and 11 who present in the dental office have an orthodontic problem that would benefit with early orthodontic treatment or intervention. So his webinar will discuss the 3 most common early orthodontic problems that present to a general dentist, and we'll discuss how to identify those conditions and how best manage them. So tune in on the 18th of August at 12:30 to hear Dr. Jeff Hall in one, or even, I believe, in the first of 3 orthodontic webinars. So it's fantastic to have Jeff come on board, or Dr. Hall come on board. We are very appreciative of his skill and his offer to help our clinicians and our general dentists in acknowledging malocclusion and how best to manage it. So thank you, Jeff. So again, I'm Matt Race from Race Dental. I appreciate you taking the time today, and I'm going to throw it over to our girls. Karen, is there any questions?
Thank you, Matt. So a lot of our questions were around the Smile Light. So what we'll actually be doing is we'll be doing putting together a fantastic promotion for our Smile Lights, and we'll be emailing out all of that information to all of our webinar participants in the next coming days, and so they'll get that and they'll be able to take advantage of a really great special that we'll be able to offer them.
Oh, that's great. Look, there's no doubt it's a very powerful tool. I don't leave home without one, so that's great, Karen. And do we have any other questions, or that was it?
That was all. A lot of them were about the Smile Light, which is fantastic. Okay,
thanks, Karen. And Karen's from customer support. If you have any information or you need any information, contact customer support at racedental.com.au, or again, contact me, Matt, at racedental.com.au. Thank you for your time tuning out. We appreciate you all taking your time. Thank you very much.